Anneke. I'm going to hand over to you. Anneke's speaking this evening from Holland, I think Schiphol, just south of Amsterdam. Anneke, please go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Simon. I think I have to sign up anyway.
Oh, you're not a member. Oh, end of webinar.
I think I am next tomorrow.
We are delighted to have you.
Thank you for the introduction. And I like to talk today about food on a boat and provide you with 10 tips about cooking on board. And well, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, and Simon will decide whether he'll raise them to me immediately or that we do it at the end of the call. So, but feel free to ask them or type them during the session. Well, who is who? Well, Robert and Anneke on a boat was our website. We sailed 14 countries in 3 years. We sailed from Florida to Australia. We did, well, as we call it, the backside of the world, 50,000 miles. So I think I apply. But in total, we lived 15 months on that boat called Spunky. And if you talk about food on a boat, 23 days non-stop. So that's a period we really had to supply for, well, without being able to do anything else than catching fish. And before we went to, we did that trip, we sailed to Australia, Indonesia for 4 months. And 3 years ago, I joined on a boat to sailing Iceland. Did a delivery from France to Greece. January, I went from La Rochelle to Gibraltar. And last week, well, it's a bit coincidence, it was on the same boat. We delivered the boat from Athens to Hurghada in Egypt. But that was also a non-stop, well, non-stop in the sense of non-stocking trip for 7 days. So that's us. Yeah, sailors. And what did we do on this big trip, the large trip? We sailed. It's funny. It's the backside of the world. So you see the other way around. As you usually you go from here to there, but now you go from the right to the left. So we started in Florida, past Cuba, Jamaica, Panama Channel, Galapagos Islands. From Galapagos, we had to do a break, so we sailed the boat to Mexico, put her on our heart. A year after, we just did 2 months of Mexico, and then we did the big crossing from San Blas via La Paz all the way to French Polynesia, Hopti Islands, French Polynesia, went to Palmerston, Niue, Tonga, Fiji, Vanuatu, and New Caledonia, and then we sailed to Brisbane and finally sold. Well, put the boat for sale in Brisbane, and well, after about a year, the boat was sold by the broker. So now we are more or less boatless back in the Netherlands. We have a small dinghy. Well, during that travel and also during the first travel, it was a bit like, hey, your first time shopping, what are you doing? Well, my first time shopping for a big crossing was in Indonesia. And in Indonesia, you go with Sail Indonesia from Australia to Indonesia. And that means that there are about 100 boats in the marina, all going to the one big supermarket to do the big shopping there. And almost all at the same time, because all the boats leave at the same time in the rally. So I got in that shop, and we were still repairing the boat because we had bought her in Darwin. And we're not repairing, doing the relevant maintenance stuff. And I went to the shop with a short list, like I know about what to buy, but just got in the shop and not really estimating what I needed. I said, well, I buy what I think I need. And then I met a guy who was buying 25 kilos of frozen lamb chops. Well, they don't sell lamb chops in Indonesia, so I'm going to bring them. Well, we saw him later in Indonesia again, and his freezer was broken, so he had given it all to the sharks. Well, knowing this, I would advise him to make some stew and put it in a cup or in a pot and keep it that way. Or the guy who bought 200 eggs and asking why you do it. Yeah, they eat chicken in Indonesia, so they won't have eggs. I don't know why he said it, but anyways, that must have been a big omelette as well. But the funny thing is, if you walk in a store and everybody starts shopping and has shopping carts full of stuff, you think, I might buy more as well. So, well, I ended up just buying lots of things, and a lot of things weren't available either because so many people were buying it. There was no bread mix anymore, no wholemeal flour. So I bought some breads in plastic bags. Well, on a boat that is moldy in a few days. Um, Tomatoes that got rotten in a few days. I bought about 10 cucumbers. Well, on a warm boat, it's just gone within a day. So that I started learning, like, okay, what should you really need? I should do this better. And that actually was the trigger for starting the book and also gathering recipes on how, yeah, what's practical on a boat. So that triggered me, and well, after the trip and during the trip, I gathered all my recipes and suggestions I got from sailors, but also from yeah, people who gave us fruit or breadfruits, like how to treat it and how to eat it actually. So that's what yeah, what made me decide to make a book about it, because I thought, if I have this issue, I won't be the only one. But what's in the book? I just put some recipes of things you can make, things you can conserve, um, beautiful experience, and the food markets we got in Vanuatu, the beverage reef we sailed. Well, and if you see so many sharks, you're not really tempted to fish there anymore. And well, what we are about today is to share some tips about food on the boat, cooking on the boat. So I want to talk about safe cooking, cooking during crossings, organizing supplies, preserving, saving water, preventing seasickness, and catching fish. And if you miss anything, just let me know. I'll share the answer. I won't talk about corned beef. Well, my first tip, make sure you have good kitchen equipment. What I really find interesting, if you look people buying a boat, all the gear, they go to gear stores, whatever gets on the boat, and then if it comes to the kitchens, we've got some old pots and pencils, let's bring them. Pots and knives or whatever. So good equipment is also for the kitchen half the battle. So make sure you buy the stuff you might need. Make sure you have sharp knives. Organize the things and just invest a little bit of money, because you will be living on a boat. So why wouldn't you spend time to have just good stuff on the boat as well? Yeah, non-slip mats, something, storage trays where you can easily organize your things. Well, I love the fan in the kitchen. Most things you can't choose, they come with a boat, but it's also good to pay attention to things you can change, like having a water filter, having some coffee percolator or other things to make it nice coffee, and so on. But just I really say spend some money on it. It's not much, but it really helps you. If you have pots that fit in each other, well, that saves so much space instead of just buying something because it's cheap or easy to buy. Tip 2, stock shopping. Well, how much do you take? That's always the question. Well, especially if you go for longer periods, how much toilet paper do you need? How much tea? How much pasta? What do you guess you would need? And for this, you can actually just make a structured approach. You can just think, okay, imagine I take 1 week. How much would I eat in 1 week? I have a breakfast, I have a lunch, I have an evening dinner, I have some snacks in between, maybe for the night some additional stuff, and make a plan for what would you eat. 1 day pasta, 1 day pizza, maybe 1 day rice, add the veggies, and make a menu. And that way you can get a more structured way of cooking and buying stuff. So this was what we had on the boat when we started the crossing for French Polynesia. And a lot of things we said, but anything, well, when you go with a taxi to a store, just buy all the stuff you will need anyways. And like the pasta or the rice or the potatoes, they stay long, and you don't want to bring them back in your backpack. You can always leave them somewhere on the boat, and like all the cans of tuna, tomato, etc., etc. And then you can leave you can add on any location with the nice tasters or the nice stuff you can buy there. And well, what you see here was our beer quantity, because when we were in Indonesia, we didn't buy that much beer in Australia, which wouldn't have been an issue, but it was Ramadan when we arrived in Indonesia, and it was really hard to get any beer. So next trip when we were when we left Mexico, I said we have to be sure we have enough beer for 3-4 months. So we just put it all on the boat. So that's about make a plan or think about what you would need and what you would eat. Well, if you have no freezer as we had, but only a fridge, it doesn't make sense to take fresh meat, but you can take salamis and chorizos, and they last really long. And well, they're nice add-on to taste. If you buy bulk products, try them before. We ended up once with tuna that, well, we didn't have a cat, but I think even a cat wouldn't have eaten it. So maybe we misread what was in it, but it was not really nice. And imagine we had 20 of those cans. We made the mistake with milk. We thought we bought milk to make yogurt, but it appeared to be soya milk. Well, that was not really our taste. And so taste products before you buy them in bulk. And of course you can't do it always, but if you have the option to do it, if you start from your home location, you know what's nice, you know what are the good olives, what's good tuna, etc. And then only take things you like yourself. If you don't like corned beef, don't bring it with the idea I will eat it. You'll never eat it. So don't take things you wouldn't eat with the idea like, well, I'm on a boat, I might eat it. If it's white beans, if it's corned beef, if it's whatever other taste, just you won't eat it on the boat either. And would you prepare things you don't like to eat? So don't bother. Yeah, and this is then the first time shopping the shopping list, and I think everybody who's been on the boats for at least a week has the experience that you end up with a huge list and well, a huge amount to pay in the store, and at the end of the week mostly it's finished, it's all gone. Then tip number 3, organize your supplies. Well, when you have huge amounts, and like you see here, oh, if you prepare for a big trip, you have quite some stuff, and it's still every time I come with all the stuff on the boat, I'm thinking, where am I going to put it? It's so much. Where do I put it? Do I have any space left? And the funny thing is, I don't know what it is with the boat, but it seems to grow while you get in there. You always find places to put your stuff. The only thing is that you have to make sure where you put it and that you can remember it. So my preferred way of organizing it is doing it logically. What's logically for the people on the boat, or at least for myself. Snacks with snacks, breakfast with breakfast, and things you want to keep for later, just store them further away. And what I did during the deliveries, I just literally put on the places where it was what was in there. Like, this is for the snacks, this is for breakfast, this is for dinner, and then we had the cans somewhere below the sofas, far away, and always a few nearby for the first days. Because that way you always remember where to find it. I know people that put things in, they have lists, and with, an inventory list for your cans. Well, you can do it, but it seems work to me, and I don't like work on a boat. So I would just rather, I stick just to the cans. Sometimes we just put the names also on the top of the cans, just to make sure that we could see what's in it, even if they were just all stored. But usually you just can find it. And people say you have to take the paper off the cans, because you will lose it anyway. That's one argument. Well, with us, for us, it stayed always on it, so it was not an issue. And the other reason to do is against cockroaches. Well, we didn't do that with the paper around wrapping on the cans, but we did it with cartons, so we didn't take those on board. And also, if you buy pasta or all those things, you rather buy it in plastic or put it in plastic bags instead of keeping it in carton or carton boxes. And then on storing all the spices and stuff, of course, you put you put in your cook in your galley, so it's easily available. Yeah, so keep it structured, and your open packages in a galley, so you always use the open packages first. And then what you see here, well, we put the onions somewhere in a net in the dark, because if you put them in the light, they go faster. So that's about organizing supplies, and the more logically you organize it, the easier it is actually. And then something else on organizing, it's also about the fruits. If you can wash them before and make sure they're really dry, it's the best way to put them and to keep them on the boat. If you can't make them dry, don't wash them, because then they will perish anyway. And on the veggies, you have to do a veggie check. So that's something, a rule every 2 days, check how the veggies are going, because otherwise, if one runs away, they all go. So you have to make sure you do a check. Tip 4, safe cooking. Well, what's safe cooking? Might be an open door, but if it's very hot, you're tempted to get inside in your bikini and do the cooking. Always make sure that you have something on that you don't get burned immediately. So not in bikinis. That's my advice. No swinging knives. Make sure you have a place where you can put your knives, so they're not just going around, or just put them in the wash basin, to make sure that it's just not flying around. Make sure you keep your floor dry. If you're washing, you have the dishes, it might get wet, it might get slippery. And one hand for the boat. And how do you do that when you cook? Well, you see here, I'm standing quite stable against the wall, but other people prefer to put a harness on. I don't like the idea that I'm locked in the kitchen, so I wouldn't do that. But make sure you are in a stable position when you cook, and that way you can use both your hands. But otherwise, you will be flying around yourself. And what you see here in the back is the non-slip mats. They're really practical also in the kitchen to use. You can put your cutting boards on it, or stuff that you don't want to slip away. Well, then cooking during crossings. That's of course the most challenging part when you're on a boat. My last crossings were on a catamaran. That's a different story, I can admit. It's much easier. But when you cook on a boat, on a monohull, so to say, cook before it gets dark. If you're cooking and you can see what's happening on the boat, you can look outside, you see the waves, you see what's ongoing. I like it much more than when you're just only seeing dark around you while you're just in the kitchen. When you just have a short crossing, prepare pasta and rice for several days. You can cook it already, just put it in the fridge and you can reuse it or just mix it what you have, or you can make pasta salads, for example, in advance. Or you can even cook meals in advance if you would like to. But apparently, I never have time before we leave to start cooking meals, so I'm not doing that. But I know people that prepare meals for weeks and just reheat them. It's just, of course, what you prefer yourself. Well, make dishes you can eat with one hand. It's not nice if you're sitting in a crossing or you're sitting outside and you still need your knife to cut items. And the advantage is also you can eat from a bowl. That's always easier than from a plate. And when you make tips for prepare for crossing, also think about lunch. My experience is that one either way, you always get more hungry on a boat, and it's nice to have some good food at lunch. And well, dependent on the weather, something warm or not. But it helps if you get prepared and at least you thought about it. Well, what recipes can you think about then? Well, what we had, for example, was unhappy courgette soup. This courgette was running away too fast, so it got in the soup. An easy pasta with chorizo. Just fry an onion, fry some chorizo, mix it with the pasta and some, well, maybe some canned tomato and some cheese. A fish soup, potato salad, a nasi. If you prepare the rice, cook the rice a day or two before, you can just bake it with some onions, with some eggs. For Shanghai, eggs omelets, a cassoulet with chorizo and beans. Easy to make. Fry some chorizo, add the beans, add the tomato sauce, maybe some tortillas with it. Pad Thai or mee stir fry. I love the little package of mee soups. You just pour hot water over it, you fry it, and you have a fried dish. The tortillas, always easy, or pasta with anchovies and capers. So it's really basic, easy, fast stuff, and you still cook it. I mean, I don't want to talk about all the things that are already made because that's easy. You go to the store and you buy them. And so, for example, for first day you could buy lasagna, you put in the oven, and you have some good food first day. But that's not in my book because you can buy it yourself. Tip 6, preserving vegetables. Well, I think my grandma did it. My mother didn't do it anymore, and I think we lost it a bit. But there's many ways of just preserving and keeping veggies during a long time. And I just mentioned you can pickle things. You can put it in oil. You can salt it, and it's easy. It's fun to do on the boat. So you just use your empty bottles or empty boxes and fill them with either with oil or cook it with salt and vinegar. And things last very long. The most easy way is just, for example, little tomatoes. You pour some vinegar over it, put it in the fridge, and it stays for weeks. Same with a bit of salt and vinegar for cucumber, for example. Well, might you be as lucky as we were that you get about 40 or 50 lemons from someone. You think, what am I going to do with this? Well, salt them and put them in the fridge. I just use them for couscous or whatsoever. So there's so much ways to do this, and it's also nice just before you might go on a trip, just Google a few of those recipes, and you have them with you, and you can always see whether you use them or not. And you always have salt and vinegar on the boat, so you can make a lot with it. Tip 7, prevent seasickness. What does it have to do with cooking? Well, my experience is if you have to cook when you get seasick, or you get seasick when you're cooking, that's not fun. So let's make sure you don't get it, or you prevent to get it. Well, how to avoid it? In Dutch we call it inslingeren. You have to get used to the waves the first days. So accept that and make sure you keep eating. You keep your you keep your stomach filled, as we say. I have quick and easy meals ready, so you can just get something if you need something. Start preparing food outside instead of being inside in the swinging boat. And if you have to be inside, make sure it's ventilated well. If you're standing in a hot kitchen, that really helps getting seasickness. Or you just sit outside, get a cup of ginger tea, and let somebody else do the work. Don't get cold, and know that it will pass. The good thing of seasick is that as soon as you're on land again, you won't have it anymore. But yeah, usually, well, that's usually it's over in 1 or 2 days. So it's good to realize that. And then the tip: hang out the line. Yeah, we love fish, and we love fishing. So what's nicer than a fresh fish that you caught fresh from the sea? Well, during our 50-month trip, we were quite lucky. We had mahi-mahis, we had wahoos, we had tunas, mackerels, cavalli jacks, and even one shark. But that was not meant to be, so we let it go. And what we do is we drag a line behind the boat, either with a rod or just a line trolling. And yeah, and they say you should put a rod at least two boat lengths behind the boat, and the best catches are in the evening or in the morning, but we just use the time that we're awake to do it, so our time slot was a bit shorter. Yeah, what you need then are your fishing equipment, your rods, your lines, the gaff. We call it fish drink, a little bit of alcohol you put in the queues once you caught them. Hooks, fishing board. You can see it here on the right. We had a big fishing board, and that way we also had an idea how long the fish was. This was 1 meter 25. We drill a hole in it, put a line through it. So after we caught the fish, we just put it outside, so it could it got clean easily. It cleaned itself actually. So nice thing to get to eat on the boat actually is your own caught fresh fish. And then what we do with it, we make fillets of it. We cut it in fillets, just and we put it in little bags in the fridge, close to the coldest places, so it cools down very very quickly. That way you can keep it yeah, as long as possible. And then how does it work? Well, I said, let's record it, but this was really an easy one, but it's not always this easy. Usually it's more a struggle, but this boat was still moving, and that helps in getting it easier on the boat. And what you see, then you have, of course, to cut it, to clean it, and put it in the fridge and eat it. Well, you can also be lucky that you got the Sailorman surprise. They're offering you the food, so then you're just preparing it yourself. And for any fish, the easiest but always delicious way to prepare it is just some oil, garlic in the pan, add the fillets, and eat them. And here's the shark sailor agreement that says, if you don't eat me, I won't eat you. So we won't eat the shark, and we're quite sure the shark won't eat us. So that's why we just let this one go. Presumably he won't eat us either. Well, and if you catch the fish, what would you do with it? Well, our favorite dish actually is a croissant cru. In Tonga, they call it otaika. It is the raw fish actually marinated in lemon. So you cut the fish in small pieces. You mix it with lemon, so it gets marinated, and then you add tomato, cucumber, and the coconut milk, and a bit of salt and pepper, and you can impress anybody with it. So if you plan to leave, just do it the last day before you go, and everybody will be impressed about what you will be eating. But you can of course also eat sashimi, ceviche. You can preserve it, make fish curries, or just fry it, bake it, whatever. Tip 9, saving water. Well, of course you're economical with water. More and more boats get now water makers that work easily. We had a water maker, and it took us more time and cost to repair it than drinking beers. But so we were not that fond of using it. My last boat, catamaran, was well, it was so, the water maker was so automated. Even when the water level is at a certain level, and the engine was on, it started by itself. So that's the other end actually. But saving water, use bucket showers and rinse with non-salty water. Give everybody an own cup or an own mug, so you don't have to do dishwashing all the times. Use fitting pans, right sizes. Use pasta instead of spaghetti, so you can put less water in your pot. You don't have to put, you just put as much as water as the pasta, and that's enough to get it cooking. Well, never leave a tap running. Would you do that? Yeah, pay attention to it, how often you do it at home. So it's a habit that if it's your habit not to stop the tap running, make sure you change your habit. Use of a foot pump, because that makes it more efficient in using water, and it's running less. Saving up dishes. Well, I don't like to do to wash dishes, but if you do it, the less you do it, the less water you use. So don't do it 3 times a day. And it's always an interesting discussion, so we might discuss it afterwards, whether you want to have salt water in your kitchen or not to do, for example, to prepare the dishes, clean the dishes. And what we had on our boat was a water catcher, just a plastic still with a little filter. When it was raining, we put the water directly in the water tanks. So that really helps in, well, actually in French Polynesia, we could live another 2-3 weeks just on the water we got. Yeah, so and what we use by using it this way is with a body wash every day, so to say, was 20 liters on average for 2 persons. And you see, just things to make it easier, and you don't, if you do your dishes like this, you need less water. Do it just once in a day, or once every other day instead of so many times, or just every time it gets dirty, just it saves water. And then tip 10, my last tip. Enjoy. And well, I think if you're on a boat, there's never a dull moment. And every time you think and you start sitting, there's something breaking. The bread is ready. You have to prepare yogurt. You have to turn the eggs. Or it just starts raining. The wind is changing. I think that's about life. And well, the picture I'm showing because that's what everybody expects when you say you're going to sit on a boat, and that's the moment you make your pictures. This was in Palmerston, by the way, but all the rainy, stormy, shitty moments, the toilet breaks, you spoil your eggs, or you get a rotten egg almost in your food. You don't make a picture of, but it's also there. And I think that realizing that it's all part of the journey, it's not all rose and moonshine, is important, because but knowing that, you can enjoy it more. And yeah, I think it's well known. Everything that can break will break. You just don't know when. But be prepared for that. And my last one, keep experimenting, especially when you're preparing food. Just try it. I mean, we got a breadfruit, never used it. Well, they said you can make a pancake of it. Well, we did it. Yeah, sure you can, but I wouldn't do it anymore. Or we got a goat soup in Jamaica. Yes, and we know why it's a local delicacy and it's not exported. But it's really nice to experiment and try things and see how it works out, whether you like it or not. Well, making different kinds of bread, making your yogurt, anything like that. It's just fun. Enjoy. That's most important. So I think we're coming to the questions part. Any questions,
Yeah,
Simon?
we've got some. I'm just going to bring in Hanneke, if I may. Let me just find her on the screen. Anneke, you've got a question. You should be able to open your microphone and go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about washing dishes. Now, our boat, of course, has the advantage of a big open deck. And we do all the dishwashing on deck with seawater. We've got a hatch to which we can lift buckets of seawater. So we've got plenty of water. In fact, in very rough water, I always have a full bucket of seawater on deck, and any dirty dish goes straight in it so that it can't blow away, particularly lighter plastic bowls or something. Everything goes in there and nothing dries up on it. And then when the bucket is full, we wash it in seawater, soapy seawater, rinse in clean seawater, and finally a rinse in the minimum of fresh water to get the salt off. And then it goes all down below in the galley again to be reused.
Yeah. Well, that way you save even more water, I think, indeed.
Yeah.
But it's always yeah. But people say, yeah.
Yeah, so in fact, we don't even have a sink down below. Everything goes outside. I mean, it's different, and it wouldn't fit on most monohulls, this method of working. But I've got water in jugs, so I don't pump it up. I pour it from a jug, and you use minimum then. Also, saving gas, put the right amount of water in the kettle, never more than what you plan to use. Saves a lot of gas if you do that. And yeah, I've done a lot of long voyages with food and without a fridge, sailed around the world with no fridge at all. And yeah, another good advice is vegetables. If possible, buy non-refrigerated vegetables and go for like greener tomatoes, get slightly unripe vegetables if you can get them. And yeah, we managed to have fresh food after 33 days. We sailed from Panama all the way to Huahina, and we were still eating the last orange and apple and stuff on the last day. So It worked out really well. We were very lucky with what food we got, actually, fresh food.
Yeah, but it's interesting because when you think about how long food lasts, especially if you think about green apples, oranges, cabbage, cabbage lasts easily for 3 weeks.
Yeah, cabbage is great. And actually, it's amazing how long tomatoes and peppers last. They last very well. Potatoes, if you keep them in the dark, we usually have a big cardboard box they go in, so there's some ventilation. It's not plastic.
Yeah. And onions. I think our onions we bought them in Mexico and they lasted till Fiji. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and but I think that's also it's nice that you remark it because sometimes I think when you're preparing for it, you should try at home how long and realize how long things last because it's really long. And in my fridge here, just as a try out because it just I had some additional cucumber. I put it in vinegar. Well, it's in the fridge, so but it stays for months now, and it's still nice to eat. So there's a lot that you can indeed keep for a long time.
Another interesting thing that is helpful if you don't have a fridge, and if you're in the tropics, if you buy things like lettuce and that. We found in Vanuatu they were selling lettuce in quite large quantities. They would string them all on a big sort of rosette. And you bought these beautiful little lettuces. And the way we would keep them, we would have good plastic bags. You would put a lettuce in it and then breathe in and out for a while so that you built up the carbon dioxide in the bag. And then when it's fully blown up with carbon dioxide, you tie it up tight. And so it's like in a little greenhouse and then put it in a net or somewhere. And they keep incredibly well and stay crisp that way without being cold.
Nice suggestion. And well, the same is valid for bananas. If you just put plastic bag on the ends, they also stay longer.
That's a really interesting tip about the carbon dioxide. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, I do it at home sometimes actually.
Yeah.
You just breathe in and out until you start feeling slightly faint.
Yeah.
And and then screw the end up tight and put a clip on it.
As long as you last longer than the lettuce, which is
yeah, that's right. Well, you could have stopped before you start fainting, but you realise the carbon dioxide builds up after a while.
Yeah, of course, that's what's used commercially, isn't it, for storing food? Is CO2, which is cool.
But you can do that in the job because we sell all in the Pacific. There's no refrigeration.
Yeah.
And then later I did this Lapita voyage, which was really primitive. Also no refrigeration
and the tip about buying unrefrigerated food is a very good one, particularly eggs. We find, I think, if eggs find a fridge before you buy them, then they don't last anywhere near as long. At least that's what
they should be.
That's what my wife tells me anyway.
Yeah. You mentioned on put just the proper amount in the kettle. Indeed, it's cook water with the kettle. Well, when you need water, but also when you cook with pans, always put the lid on it. And if you cook, for example, pasta and rice, as soon as it's cooking, you can switch the gas off and just leave it, and it will get ready by itself.
A pressure cooker is very useful. That saves a lot of gas, and if you can use a small portion of seawater instead of salt in when cooking pasta.
Yeah,
about a third seawater. That works.
Thank you, Anneke. And please bring in any more questions. I've asked Matt Bowman to open his microphone because he's put a question on there, although he says it's from Zach, so I'm not sure if it's Matt that's going to come in or Zach, but please go ahead, Matt or Zach.
Hey, it's Matt and Zach here. We're listening from the comfort of our little boat, and we were just wondering if you could tell us more about fishing, whether you're trawling lures behind you or bait or little plastic jellyfish, whatever it might be. So far we've caught mackerel, lots and lots of mackerel, and we're getting slightly sick of only catching mackerel. Our cats love it, but we'd like to catch something else. So just wondered if you had any tips or advice for what you do and how you catch it?
Yeah, I think it has to be there anyways, otherwise you won't catch it. So now, and what we do, we troll, and we had a plastic lure, a plastic blue ink fish, and that was our lucky one. That's called most fishes, but we also lost a lot of lures. So yeah, that's part of the game, I think. So you have to bring hooks, but I also caught fishes with just a toothbrush, toothpaste, a tube where I added a hook to. So they say sometimes some people say they bite in everything, and others say you have to have dedicated collars. But I couldn't find like what's the rule. Well, the rule is if you see fishes diving somewhere, go there, and if you see birds diving, go there, and there is fish.
Awesome, thank you. And I was wondering if you ever used something called a paravane. Well, one of our friends recommended it to us, and it looks a bit like a shuttlecock almost, and it goes on the line and helps whatever lure you put on dive underwater, is my vague understanding.
Yeah, yeah. That's the goal. Well, we used it, but we lost it in 3 days. 3 days, I think. So it wasn't really useful. But
Did you catch many fish before you lost it?
no, not more than no. We didn't catch any fish on it. But during that trip, we did 3 weeks, and every week, well, they started laughing at me on the boat because I was the fishing wife. But I put out the line, 2 lines every morning and every evening and got them in. And every lunch we were joking about the fish that was not in. And I think only the last day I got a tuna. So, and our last trip we got 4 or 5 tunas in 1 week. So it's just, I don't know what it is. They say that with the speed of the boat. Some people say you shouldn't go faster than 5 miles. Well, we caught the fishes at 7 miles an hour, so 7 knots. So I don't know. I think
Zach, I'd like
Okay.
to point you towards two great resources. Actually, we did an OCC webinar about a year ago on fishing on an Atlantic circuit. So there's lots of information, particularly about the type of lure you just mentioned, on that webinar, which is you can download off the OCC website, and also a really great webinar on ciguatera poisoning. Which anybody who's fishing or particularly spear fishing in the Pacific, I would strongly recommend that you listen to the webinar on ciguatera poisoning. Not a problem in the open ocean, but a problem in some of the atolls. So that's my 2 pence worth there.
Now makes definitely sense. Well, we didn't fish near the reef for that reason, indeed.
Where are you at the moment, Zach? Where are you on your boat?
We're on the south coast of the UK.
Okay, cool, great, excellent, super. Thank you very much. I've got a question from Philip Karcher. Philip, you should be able to open your microphone.
Great. Hi, from Sarasota, Florida here. I'm refitting my boat, and I'm using an alcohol stove, passive alcohol stove as a primary, but I'm also thinking making room for a dedicated jet boil gimbal stove. What are your thoughts about that for, blue water cruising? Do I really need to make room in the galley for that, or do you think the alcohol stove would just be fine? It's a 2-burner.
I'm sorry, I just don't get what between what and what you have to choose.
Yeah, basically, I think the alcohol stove is just the alcohol stove, right? Where the jet boil is a butane-based stove that is designed for boiling water quickly and then making prepared food packets easily. It's used a lot of times in a racing, open ocean racing scenario. I'm just trying to figure out if that translates to a cruising application, and do you find yourself, really, going back to sort of the pre-made food packets that you can just put into boiling water? Is an alcohol stove just sufficient really for most crossings?
I've no experience with that. I rather cook my meals on the boat. So
yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I asked the question. Yeah.
No,
Okay, great.
No, I can't help with it.
I guess there's a few other things we can add there, Phil. Increasingly used these days are solar ovens. So our Scandinavian friends in the Pacific were using solar powered ovens, which are very efficient, particularly in the tropics, obviously. A huge advantage there that you're not heating the galley at the same time as heating the food. And a lot of people these days aren't using propane or butane. If you've got a big catamaran or modern lithium batteries, then a lot of people are starting to use induction hobs at sea, which also don't heat up the saloon or the galley anywhere near as much as burning either alcohol or butane straight propane. But I guess the more complex the cooking arrangements, probably the more sophisticated food you can end up with at the end of the day. But I'd be wary about burning alcohol in tropical areas. But you're down in Florida, so it gets pretty hot down there.
Yeah, and the thing also about butane or propane, you had to control, the canisters, much more than just denatured alcohol, for the alcohol stove, right? It's not a pressurized stove; it's a very passive stove.
Yeah.
And so it's a real question for me whether or not I should just just go with one or add the jet boil, because you are crossing that line there, with so I'm gonna take a look at those passive solar
Yeah, we've
devices.
just bought one, so can't tell you how it works, but we were convinced by our friends that it was a good few €100 well spent. I hope they're right.
Yeah, so that's a big takeaway. Let me take a look at a couple more alternatives and see if I need a backup. So thanks a lot. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot,
so
everybody.
the one we've used is GoSun, GOSUN. It can heat up off 12 volts, or it can heat up off the sun, obviously. So it might be, if you're in a hot country, it might be an alternative to baking in your propane oven, etc. So thanks for your question. We've got a comment from Nikki Barker. Nikki, have already picked up on that, but if you want to come in and elaborate, I'm not sure if it's Nikki or Reg, but please go ahead.
Hi, Simon. Yes, it's Nikki. I was just had a comment on Matthew's question about fishing, and Charles Delaney, who I think you've already mentioned, he did the webinar for the OCC a year or so ago. He wrote an article in Flying Fish, so this year's Flying Fish, last year's Flying Fish 2024, about fishing on a boat with 10 good tips for fishing, and it's really well worth a read. It's an excellent article. So if you're interested in fishing and want to get better at fishing on a boat and then eating said fish, it's well worth a read. And secondly, two other suggestions relevant for this webinar. We use a vacuum packer for fresh fish and for fresh meat. We don't have a freezer on board, but it's you can vacuum pack. You can get a vacuum packer. It's about the size of a small printer. It comes with you get rolls of sort of plastic bag material, effectively. So the downside is that it is single-use plastic. But if you do use it, then you can keep fish fresh in that, and you then once you vacuum packed, you put it into the fridge. And we've had fish for 3 weeks, maybe 3.5 weeks, absolutely fine. Probably last longer than that. And for egg storage, just turn your eggs regularly every couple of days, and that'll keep them going for 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. That's super. Thank you very much. A question for you, Anneke. Your book, is it in English? Okay, obviously, the one you've got on the screen at the moment is in Dutch, but is it available in English?
Oh.
No translations yet.
No translations yet. Yeah, I thought, should I put yet or should I put none? But
yeah, there is a good English language alternative. I'm sure you're aware of the Boat Galley Cookbook, I think it's called. And of course, the OCC produced its own cookbook about 15, 20 years ago, something like that. But Yeah, no, all good. Have
And if you go to the Pacific, there's the Pacific Cookbook, which is also nice with local recipes, with local ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, one of the pleasures, of course, of cruising in the Pacific is that huge abundance of fruit in some of the islands, not all of them, but a trip ashore and you're overwhelmed with the number of mangoes and things you go home with is just, well, it changes your diet very dramatically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sally, I don't know if you want to come in, Sal, but I think she's shaking her head. I don't think she's got a microphone. Sally, stored a lot of the fruit, the excess fruit that we picked up in some of the islands by blending it and freezing it, which is a really good way of keeping fresh fruit well into a Pacific crossing,
Well,
which was wonderful. So fruit smoothies mid Pacific, wonderful.
now we got about 30 pompomousses. We exchanged it for some wahoo. And but they last anyway. I mean, pamplemousse and like oranges, they last for weeks. So every day we had a fresh pamplemousse. And if we went to the next islands, we could bring them the pamplemousses from the other islands because they didn't have any. So
Yeah, so the Tuamotus doesn't do so well for fruit because they haven't got any soil, have they? So you have to stock up. You have to stock up in the marquesas
yeah.
and take it all with you. But then you have the fresh fish and the Tuamotus. And Nikki wants to come back. Oh yeah, of course. I agree with Nikki. Nikki is saying thank you very much for your excellent presentation, Anneke. Have we got any more questions?
Yeah, I realized actually when you all come up with all the suggestions, you know, there is such a long list, but in the meantime, with turn the eggs, what do you do? Put a leaf in the rice, put the rice in the salt. But if you start mentioning all that in the presentation, it's like, yeah, you know. But there are so many little suggestions that, like you say, use the vacuum bags. Well, we use plastic bags. We put them against the freezer, but also for fish, just brine it with some in salt water, and it also keeps for weeks.
A great tip from our boat, which is Shimshell, is to cut down on plastic waste. Is instead of buying yogurt, make your own. So and I think there was a big discussion in the WhatsApp groups going across the Pacific about how to make your yogurt, but it was fantastic. And you can buy milk powder. It's subsidized in French Polynesia. It's cheap as chips. And you can make your own fresh yogurt every day, and you're not generating plastic, which is a great way to a great tip on keeping food fresh and avoiding plastic waste.
Oh.
Baking, I guess, is the other big option, isn't it? Is keeping sourdough active and all that sort of stuff. And do you bake when you're in hot countries if you're in the tropics, Anneke, or is it too hot down below to use the oven?
No, because you put it in the oven and you go outside. That's the advantage of putting things in the oven. You don't have to stay there. So we baked quite some bread and cakes, banana cakes, of course, because when you get loads of bananas, what do you do with them? You put them in a cake.
Yeah, of course.
And cake lasts also longer than just fresh bananas, especially when they get very ripe very soon because you got too many. And you can bake so much kind of bread as well, so that's also fun. But yeah.
Great. Has anybody else got any questions or things? Yeah, Roberts wants to come in. Let me just find him on the screen and I'll get him to open his microphone. Robert, you should be able to go ahead. Robert, I can see you've got your microphone open, but I can't hear you at the moment. Can you hear anything there, Anneke, at the moment? No. So Robert's written his question, saying it would be. Oh, it's just jumped up. He's just trying to connect, I think. That sounds encouraging.
I was just wondering, the people on the boat, are they using Starlink now? Or are you still close to shore or in the marina?
I'm not sure who's on the boat at the moment, but Robert's point, I don't think his microphone is working. Was to use mostly local ingredients, obviously, which is good for food miles and freshness, etc., isn't it? And also using stuff in season. I think that's the point he was trying to make. But Robert, your microphone isn't muted, but we still can't hear you. Hopefully you'll be able to get it working. We've got a question from Cynthia.
I can react to that. I indeed buy fresh local as much as possible. And my preference is just to buy all the stock food somewhere where you go just in one go with the texture or whatever. And so you have your rice, your pasta, your canned food, your canned beans, your lentils, whatsoever. And once you go to you arrive in the country, the only thing you can do and have to do is to enjoy the local markets and buy the local food and try and taste it. But you don't have to care about whether you have to buy milk or whatsoever. So that's what I would do. And indeed, when you buy local, usually it is the stuff that's available, and that's you buy it in the right season. I won't buy beans from Kenya in the Pacific or so. Also, it's very interesting that I was really I could have expected it, but if you're in French Polynesia, you go to the Carrefour, and they sell all the French stuff, and they even have above the cheese department that says par avion, which means this is flown in by plane, so the cheese is still good once it arrives. Well, but that's a bit special.
And French Polynesia has that strange subsidy system, doesn't it? So there are some things you can buy incredibly cheaply in French Polynesia, whereas most things are actually quite expensive. But I never really understood how that worked.
Well, right, I think it's rice and the white baguettes. So the basic baguettes, they're almost free. Yeah. And rice, so the basic, the staple foods, and all the other things that are imported are expensive. And local things are not expensive because they're local.
Yeah.
Locally grown.
Cynthia's got a question. Cynthia, you should be able to open your microphone. I don't think you're still muted, Cynthia, so you'll need to unmute to ask your question. Otherwise, we can read it out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Anneke. Did you use any crock pot?
No, I didn't, but I might consider it next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
Yeah. The disadvantage of those tools is that they'll also take a little bit of time, and my experience is that if you just switch the gas off, you don't have to keep things really warm separate. It will get ready anyways, but it's all, of course, dependent on the temperatures where you're in.
And also, for how do you did you bake your bread?
So how do you make bread?
Bread
in the oven.
Oh, just in the oven. Okay.
Yeah. Dus we have
there's only a limited storage space in the galley, so
yeah,
I understand. But sometimes I see so many equipment in galleys. I think, whoa, I wonder what are the most useful tools. And you didn't mention it at all, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hanneke's come back. We've got a few more comments too. So Sten is saying he's coming to you via Sunblas, via Starlink from Sunblas.
Okay, oh nice.
So very good. And Robert heard your comments, but but couldn't get back to you. He asks a question, what's the best remedy for seasickness? It's a bit outside your domain there, Anneke, but have you got any comments on that?
Well, last trip I would have advised Scopoder, just to put behind your ear, because I didn't get seasick because of that. But later on I realized I become so lazy, slow, sleepy from it that my last trip I decided I just go and I'm not gonna ride first day. I just make sure I'm outside. I'm not gonna be downstairs too long, and then I got over it in one day. So that's now my new policy. Just get over it in a day, stay outside, eat some ginger, you know, don't go, well, just think about what you're doing, you know, so you don't get seasick actually. Make sure you eat some food, you eat in time, you don't get cold. Preferably stay outside first days. Don't start doing strange things, reading books or trying to write logs or whatsoever. That helped for me, but it's my personal experience.
Yeah, and as a physician, you've got to be really careful with drug side effects. Hugely underappreciated, the side effects of some of this common seasickness remedies. They can cause acute urinary retention in men, and we've certainly seen medical emergencies happen as a result of that. We've seen people getting acute confusional states because of side effects from drugs like Scopoderm. So
okay, yeah.
Make sure your medicine suits you before you go to sea, so that if you do get side effects, you know what to expect. Or choose one that doesn't have much in the way of side effects. My wife's sailing has been transformed by the use of a drug called cyclozine, which is non-sedating. It doesn't cause urinary retention, doesn't make you go long-sighted when you're trying to read the charts in the night. Some things work for some people, but nothing works for everybody. But just be wary about over-medicating and causing a medical emergency by the inappropriate use of seasickness tablets. Little message from the heart. No, a friend of ours had a guy on the boat who went into acute urinary retention in the middle of a gale in the middle of the North Sea. 200 miles each way to land, and it ended badly. And that was a side effect from his seasickness medication.
Like if you get really seasick and you're so seasick you're not able to do anything, that's also a risk if you're just doing a boat. So
of course, avoidance is the best bet. Choosing the right weather, being on the right point of sail makes a difference. Yeah, but there's no universal answer, obviously. Anneke, you want to come back in? Your microphone's still open. You can go ahead.
I just made a comment about milk. You know, if you have a fridge, you can have things like UHT milk in large amounts in stock, but in the tropics with no fridge, even that will go off before you're halfway through a packet. So, and in fact, out there they sell lots of good powdered milk, and using powdered milk, and you have a jug, and you just mix up enough that you need for your tea or whatever you're doing, and it's always fresh. It's not the greatest taste, but it's it works much better.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Now we used what's it used UHT milk that you could keep out of the fridge. I mean, we had a powder milk, but actually that appeared to be soda milk, so that was the wrong. And then we preferred the package of milk because it was just easier. But indeed, powder milk is just taking less space and keeping longer.
So, Sten, you should be able to open your microphone from San Blas. You want to comment on your wife's use of ondansetron? You are still muted, Sten, but you go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Oh, he said I can speak. I'm her wife. I'm his wife.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, I use the medication called. I used to get quite seasick, in the beginning. So I recommended a medication called ondansetron, which is originally prescribed for chemo and radiotherapy patients for nausea and vomiting. And for me, it worked miracles because I used to get quite, I used to scopotum, but over time I used to get really weird side effects. And what I found with this drug, that I have no side effects whatsoever. But I truly agree that it might not work for everybody. And what works, it's good to test these things out before, when when you go like your Pacific crossing, like we prepare. So I have plenty of drugs for me, and kind of natural remedies for the kids and things like that. So just making sure that you have kind of availability, and also just staying outside.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, ondansetron, of course, is prescription only. We tried it in the Southern Ocean. We didn't find it effective, but as you say, it works. It works for some, but not for everybody.
It's exactly. And I would really quickly say that about powdered milk. So we've been in now we are in San Blas actually we've been here for over a month now, and I have to say that some brands it's good to test out. We got some from the French islands, and I bought some from Trinidad to test out the powdered milk, and we have found that they have really come a long way. I usually mix one up in the evening, so by the morning it's nice and cold. I sometimes increase the amount of powder I put in to make it a bit more kind of fuller or fatter. And I have been very, very successful of making yogurt out of powdered milk as well. So I think it's when you do one brand, maybe check your brands. I realized one that my family was all kind of wasn't very happy about. I realized it was skimmed milk. So skimmed powdered milk. So obviously there's not much in it already. So just to make sure that it's like a full cream and things like that. So I've been really impressed that I can manage to make, I made cream cheese, a yogurt, or everything out of powdered milk. We don't even carry anymore the UHT milk. We only have powdered milk. So it does work.
Okay.
So it's just patience.
And what do you use do you use a yogurt maker, or do you make it in a thermos bottle, or?
My friend did my friend had a very good, she had the thermos bottle system. I started to use, I had a pressure cooker, and then I realized there was a yogurt the kind of button on it. So I thought my husband was complaining I don't use it enough. It's very heavy, it's big, and takes lots of space. So I decided to try it on it, and it works perfectly. So I put it on in the night, or sometimes day when we have more solar. And then in the fridge overnight, and I have a lovely yogurt in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, completely endorse that. Any more questions, anybody? We've kept Anneke up going for quite a long time now. I'm sure she's getting quite exhausted, but anybody else? Anybody else got any more questions or points they want to raise, or anything else? I think we've probably come to the end, Anneke, which is great. We had well over 60 people on through to the hour. It's dropping off now, so it probably is time to wind up. But thank you very much for a great talk. Some really good comments at the end, I think, from people who've been there and done that. It always amuses me that Anneke has such trouble with space. She has a 65-foot catamaran, I think. Is that right, Anneke? She's maybe not listening at the moment, but yeah.
That's not replying, is it?
Yeah, 63 foot, but very, very simple. As I said, we don't have a sink in our galley. We do have a small fridge now, actually, but we didn't when we did our long voyage.
Actually, I was in a cat. I will just go back to the slide because I do. It was a delivery, but we just got on the boat and we said, "My God, how can you sail with a sink like this?" It was just 2 things in one go, but it was perfect for cleaning fish, dishwashing, anything, because it was on the cat, so it doesn't move. And when you use the boat, you see this thing. This is so impractical, but on the cat it works. So
Yeah,
might
well,
decide to go for a sink, I would buy a big one.
yeah, we've just got a deck locker with lots of big like plastic bowls in it.
Yeah.
And we just spread them out on the deck, and we've got a slatted grated deck, so it's a built-in draining rack as well. So,
Yeah.
and then the sun dries it, and we've got a hatch in this deck as well, so we can bring up buckets of seawater safely.
Okay, yeah.
The bucket is always tied on, and you just open the hatch. And cleaning fish is fantastic because you can just shuffle the
You do it outside.
waste straight down the hole and
Yeah.
wash it all down with buckets of seawater.
I'm curious, Hanneke, where are you at the moment? Last I heard you were in the
My
Azores.
boat is in Portugal, in the Algarve,
Oh, lovely.
not far from Faro in the lagoon.
Great. Great. Well, thank you for your
I
contribution.
came for the Azores to the OCC meeting there.
I know you
in,
were. Yeah,
September.
You were sailing with Bob, I think.
Oh yes, Bob Shapton.
Yeah.
He had quite an interesting experience. It's a very different boat from what he's used to.
Yeah, indeed, and yeah, I think Bob's gone offline now. But it was Bob that said, "Surely this talk's just going to be about corned beef," which I'm pleased to say we've hardly mentioned.
Actually, corned beef seemed to be the staple food everywhere when we were there in the 90s. It was always
right?
corned beef
Well,
and taro tops.
I was
Corned beef
amazed.
and taro tops.
In Tonga, you have just stores that are almost stocked with corned beef only.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's right. Yeah, all these cans of corned beef everywhere.
That's not
Yeah.
such good news. So we've got a comment from Philip about yogurt again. Uses small jars and places them in the fridge. We use a thermos flask very effectively, and that's super cheap as well. They use it for making fresh yogurt in higher latitudes. Okay. Yeah, a tip for baking bread in higher latitudes is an electric blanket, because we could never get the bread to rise in the Arctic. But using an electric blanket, it's a long story as to why we've got an electric blanket on our boat. But there you go. Super, Anneke. Thank you very much indeed.
Sorry.
Go on.
I was just chipping. The yogurt maker, we actually in New Zealand bought a fantastic sort of thermos yogurt maker, which is a big thermos, and inside is the yogurt container, and you fill it up with boiling water up to a certain level, close it all up, and it just becomes the right temperature to make yogurt.
EasyO, is it?
Sorry?
It's called the EasyO, or not?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We had that one, but I was annoyed because it wasn't stable, so you just had to put it somewhere that it wouldn't fall. And on my next trip, I would try to do it just with a thermos bottle, I think.
You just need a wide-necked thermos. Stanley make a wide one, which is a good size.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a hand up. So who's got their hand up? I can't see it now. Philip. Yeah, go ahead, Philip. You should be able to speak.
Okay. Hi. Just to mention for an example, we do our yogurts in a normal in small jars, fill in the mixture of yogurt and milk, and place it in the normal pan we use in an oven, but place that on top of our compressor of the refrigerator. And even in colder climates like our Northern Sea, that's perfect to produce yogurt. You need something like 14 hours, maybe even 20. But it's a really solid, nice yogurt without using energy for boiling water and some boiling stuff. So everything you have on board anyway, you can use for that.
That's a great tip.
Clever, because then you use the heat of the compressor, and that's this constant stable heat, so to say. Nice.
Yeah.
I really like that suggestion.
Okay. Take care. Thank you very much.
Anneke, thank you very much indeed. That's a lovely talk. It's been lovely to meet you. I'm looking forward to catching up with Barbara and Thierry in French Polynesia, and sharing our stories of Iceland, and hearing about what great food you had when you were sailing around Iceland with them.
Well, Barbara was also a good cook, so that was really
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
never
Yeah,
been-
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine their boat probably has like 3 microwaves and maybe 4 deep freezers or something, does it? Or is it super simple? It's big enough to accommodate virtually everything, isn't it? But
It it was not that it was good. It was just and
it
it
was
was
good.
yeah, it was good. I don't remember exactly what it was on about, but no complaints.
No complaints, no complaints.
Uh,
Anneke, thank you very much. I'm going to close the meeting down. But been a great talk, and I will probably post the video up onto the website probably on Saturday. I'm guessing it takes a while for my computer to process it all, so it'll be live on the OCC website from Saturday. I will send you a list of all the people that attended tonight, along with their emails. When you finish with it, please delete it for data protection. But if you want to contact individuals, you can, of course, do that. I'll also send you a copy of the chat line in case you want to take something up with any particular individual. And I'm sure people may contact you directly as well. But thank you very much. I'm going to learn Dutch, and then I can buy a copy of your book.
Definitely, or use Google Translate. And thank you all for joining, and thank you for hosting and for the nice questions and interaction.
It's our pleasure. And for those people that are still online, we are back with Jimmy Cornell next week. And then our last webinar of the series will be about the Pacific Northwest in 2 weeks' time. So 2 more webinars this winter. But thank you for dialing in this evening, and we're signing off. Good night. Good night, Anneke.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.